and welcome to the Gifted Education Update 2025 edition. I was thinking last night about how many years we had been doing the Gifted Education Update, and I'm really not sure, but we've done it many years and think it is a wonderful way to launch an academic year, keeping people up to speed with what's current in gifted education in Kentucky. The Gifted Education Update has always been hosted by the Kentucky Association for Gifted Education and the Center for Gifted Studies at WKU. So, to welcome you from KAGE is Lynette Breedlove. And Lynette is the director of the Gatton Academy of Mathematics and Science in Kentucky and the president-elect of KAGE. Welcome, Lynette.
Thank you, Julia, and welcome everyone. The KAGE and the Center for Gifted Studies have a wonderful partnership, and KAGE is very grateful for all of the support the center provides. And we hope that all of you are members and will continue to renew your membership with us and make plans to engage in some of our upcoming activities. One of the things that the KAGE board has really focused on is how to engage families and how to engage educators throughout the year. So we are starting a new activity that we're calling Chat and Chew. Basically, bring your lunch and join online to have a conversation about once a month. And I am going to put information about that in the chat box so that you have access to that. I believe Tyler just updated that so everyone has access. So September 23rd will be our first one. It'll be from 12:30 to 1 Eastern time. And we're going to talk about bright minds, big questions, and understanding giftedness. It's just a little quick opportunity to connect with others. We also are excited about our planning for the February annual conference. That is such an amazing opportunity for everyone to come together, get re-energized, see your friends from other school districts, because many of us are the only person responsible for gifted in our district or the primary person, and that can feel lonely. So coming to the conference can really give you that sense of community, help you get new ideas, and help us build a great community around advocating for gifted education in the state of Kentucky. I also want to mention that we are still looking for an executive director. So if you know someone who works part-time or is recently retired who might be interested in leading our organization, we are on the hunt for the right person. The right person who feels comfortable doing organizational things like helping with the conference, but is also comfortable advocating at the state and national level for gifted education. If you know of someone, just direct them to our website or let Dr. Roberts or I know. And so with that, I am looking forward to this update, and thanks for joining us to start off your school year.
At the Center for Gifted Studies at WKU offers many opportunities for young people, for educators, and for parents. And we always appreciate you sharing that information with others for whom you think it would be high interest. Coming up right away, we have a workshop that focuses on twice exceptional students. Dr. Claire Hughes is one of the best in the country. She's at Cleveland State University, and she will be talking about how do we identify children who are gifted and also have a learning difference or learning disability, and what are strategies that will help them thrive in their lives and in the educational setting. This is a workshop for which regular classroom teachers, parents, grandparents, classroom special education teacher, gifted resource teacher, all of those people have a vested interest in students who are 2E or twice exceptional. An opportunity that the Doctors Modi of Glasgow have made available is for students to submit proposals for various types of service learning that they would be interested in leading and perhaps gaining some financial support for doing so. This is really important information for young people to know about. Anyone in Kentucky could submit to one category. Middle and high school students can do that. And for the other category, if you're at the Gatton Academy or have been in programming that the Center for Gifted Studies offers, you would be eligible to provide a proposal for consideration. We travel twice a year this fall to Germany and in the spring to Italy. The Berta Seminar is bringing in Del Siegley, who is the director of the National Research Center on the Gifted and Talented. He's going to be focusing on what is it that helps students do well. What is it that they need to have to be looking at? What do we as educators need to be looking at if we have underachieving kids or achieving kids and we want to make sure that they move forward with the work and the level of dedication that they have? Super Saturdays we'll do twice a year with a trio of Saturdays in the fall and then again in February. The differentiation workshop is what I'll be doing. What is it that we can do to differentiate that will make it easy to do and make it so that as an elementary or middle school teacher, I will expect to differentiate, knowing that students may already come to this learning with information and need a challenge that goes beyond that. But it is basic differentiation. And then, of course, in the summer, and we can plan for summer now, the summer camp for academically talented middle school students, 2 weeks of learning, making friends who are good idea mates, and also having lots of fun. FAMPI is our 3-week program that we have offered for many summers. These 7th through 10th graders focus on one class that they're interested in and have ability to do well in, and they too thrive as they spend time with others who share their interests. Camp Innovate for 3rd to 5th graders, Camp Explorer for 1st through 3rd graders, week-long camps where young people are engaged in minds-on, hands-on learning. And please know, minds-on comes first and is most important in that learning situation. And the Gatton Academy, of course, is right here. It offers a residential 2-year STEM program for talented high school juniors and seniors. The application is available and will be up until February the 1st. Preview weekends are wonderful opportunities to come and talk to current students, staff, learn about the opportunities that are readily available for those who who applied to the Gatton Academy and who are selected to be here for their last 2 years of high school. Remember, these students remain enrolled at their sending school, and the sending school continues to keep their average daily attendance money as well as their assessment scores. everybody wins. So here we are again. This QR code will take you to all of the information that is there for opportunities that we have. And we have updates that come out monthly, and you can sign up and be part of those. So today is launched, offered by KAGE and by the Center. And we are so happy that you have joined us. And I want to just mention a couple of things about gifted education in Kentucky that we all must know. And one of those is that gifted children in Kentucky constitute a category of exceptional children. That's the law. The law says that all exceptional children in Kentucky will have an individual education plan, an IEP. You likely know the IEP for gifted students as a gifted student services plan. It has the strength of law. And I hope that you and your colleagues know that and implement the services for gifted kids that allow that to be the case. So this year, we have had a piece of legislation passed by the Kentucky General Assembly. Both houses passed it unanimously, and that is House Bill 190. It's looking at advanced content. And here with us to talk about House Bill 190 is Bridget Blom. And Bridget is the CEO and president of the Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence. And with her is Delaney Stevens, who is a staff member working on this particular piece of legislation, helping us define it, what it means. And but Bridget, before we start, tell people what the Pritchard Committee is.
Well, good Saturday morning, everyone. And Dr. Roberts, thank you. The Pritchard Committee is a longstanding citizen-led organization in Kentucky. We're 43 years old. We were founded in 1942 years old. We were founded in 1983 by a group of Kentuckians who believed that Kentucky could do better when it comes to education outcomes. At the time, the state was bottom of the national rankings in just about every indicator we could measure. And the citizens of the who came together to form the Pritchard Committee believed we could improve those rankings by coming together with a shared vision and working intentionally to improve them through both policy and local mobilizing. So we've been around for 42 years, as I mentioned, working both in Frankfort and working with local communities to improve outcomes at the local level. We do work in early childhood, K-12 education, as well as post-secondary education.
That sounds really important to me.
It is very important. Over time, I mentioned we were bottom of the national rankings in the 1980s. Over time, Kentucky has risen to middle of the national rankings and sometimes even in the top 10, top 5 of national rankings. There are still rankings like mathematics where we are woefully behind. So the work continues to be as important today as it has ever been. But that underlying message that we can improve, we can do hard things, we can realize progress together, I think is the most important message of the committee currently. The next generation that picks up this work can continue that great march towards the top 10 and the top 20 in the nation.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about House Bill 190. Here we go.
Great, wonderful. Delaney's got our slide deck here. All right, so as Dr. Roberts mentioned in the last legislative session, we were proud to have worked alongside her and a number of other individuals in the state, as well as Representative Duval from Bowling Green, to work on a piece of legislation that would allow greater access to advanced coursework in Kentucky. That would include AP, dual credit, but also advanced learning in classes that students demand and desire. So Kentucky has a significant opportunity, which is what we recognized at the time, to transform advanced coursework access through systemic policy changes and targeted investments. Building on House Bill 190's foundation and learning from successful state models like North Carolina. So as we entered into this conversation, we also had the support of a national organization, both through Gifted and Talented, but also at the Education Trust. The Education Trust for years had been sharing information out about states' progress in ensuring access to advanced coursework through an equity lens. And we had been talking about that for a number of years. That lens was primarily through the lens of racial equity. We also began to hear from members of the Pritchard Committee across the state who reside in more rural areas that they were likewise concerned about access to advanced coursework for students in rural areas, who had limited access to teachers teaching advanced coursework, or districts who were not offering advanced classes, classes in subject matter that were not tested. And so as we continued to move down this path to better understand the issues with advanced coursework, North Carolina became a model for us, and one with whom Dr. Roberts has worked closely to look at an issue specifically around automatic enrollment. So one of the ways that we can respond to the issue of access to advanced coursework through a policy lens, through a system lens, is to ensure the barriers for a young person to be enrolled in advanced coursework are removed. And that's what we sought to remedy with House Bill 190. There's still some work to do to make sure that that automatic enrollment really comes to fruition in the state. And that's where implementation at the local level really matters. And each of you understanding this, providing feedback on it, providing best practice examples will help us move forward as a state through the lens of both policy and local practice. So as Delaney has up on this slide, why does this matter? We know it matters because equity and excellence are not competing priorities. We know that we have to support all learners to achieve their potential and excel well beyond basic and even proficiency. And to support excellence through an equity lens is critical to do that for Kentucky young people and for Kentucky's future. Traditional identification tends to miss talent, and we've seen that stated by multiple groups, both at the national level through the Gifted and Talented Task Force that was set up, the Education Trust, and we know that to be true here in the state. Early identification creates pathways for students when we identify talent and ability early and then are able to support young people to realize their potential and remove the barriers that might otherwise keep them from realizing that potential. And then lastly, that systemic change is needed. House Bill 190 seeks to support that systemic change. But again, I want to underscore the importance of local practice and local implementation. We can have all the policy on the books in Frankfurt in black and white and still not meet the implementation and the impact that we need at the local level. So here at the Pritchard Committee, as we have moved through 4 decades of work, we increasingly value innovation at the local level that moves us to upward pressure on system change. And so implementation and the innovation that you all embrace will be helpful in realizing the outcomes that we're after with a bill like this. So as some of the data that we looked at as we were beginning to make the case for the importance of a bill like House Bill 190 is to look at, and this is through the lens of our meaningful diploma work, which Delaney is leading. For a number of years, well before COVID, We were able to call Kentuckians' attention to the fact that we were third and now fourth in the nation for graduation rate as something that we should celebrate. And indeed, it is something we should celebrate because it is testament of Kentuckians coming together to improve an outcome that we know is important for our future. And for many years, the graduation rate was that outcome. Now we sit in the top 5 nationally for graduation. But we know, and each one of you will know this to be true, that while our graduation rate is top 5 in the nation, behind that number, we are still not preparing enough young people to truly be successful after they graduate from high school. And the data shows that to be true as well. So as an example, we are below the national average in English with 48% of Kentucky high schoolers meeting benchmarks, and below the national average in mathematics with 23% meeting proficiency benchmarks. So if we look at just the academic case behind the graduation rate, the strong and rigorous academic outcomes are not there that would support an assurance that the diploma is actually meaningful for a young person's next steps. If we look through an equity lens and look at AP enrollment, so how many students are actually accessing rigorous advanced content that sets them up for real success in a post-secondary environment, 27% of students who are white are accessing those AP classes. Only 4.3 to, Delaney, you might have to help me with those percentages there. But 4.3, maybe we've seen a decline we've seen a decline from 4.3, okay, to 2.6
since
in Black
2017 to
students.
2023. That's been a decline there. Yep.
Okay, 2017 to 2023. So the numbers you see here, the decline in students who are white enrolling in AP classes from 27 to 26, a decline from students who are Black from 4.3 to 2.6, and then students who are economically disadvantaged, 21% to 12.5%. So in the years pre and post COVID, we've seen a real decline in access in AP. There are a variety of reasons likely for that. But the fact of the matter is students are enrolling in potentially less rigorous coursework. And so we want this to be a canary in the coal mine, if you will, to help us double down on ensuring that students have access, whether it's AP, it's dual credit, it's access to classes that increase rigor for them, which they are interested in. And then added to that are the persistent equity gaps that we continue to see for students. So elementary gifted programs, and this is something the Education Trust, we have long been working with them on. The number of students who are Black, 31 per 100, would be needed for an appropriate representation through an equity lens. Students who are economically disadvantaged, 62.6% of fourth graders, but these students only represent only 37.5% of gifted participants. I recall hearing Dr. Roberts talk about the Javits program and understand that a lot of the objective behind that program was to ensure that we are scaffolding young people regardless of barrier. Economic disadvantage, racial marginalization, that we are ensuring we're identifying those students early and mitigating barriers that might be present that would keep them from otherwise enrolling and being successful in gifted programs. So that's a bright spot in the state, which we can point to for one of the ways in which we are working on the equity gap issue. In 8th grade algebra, only 56 students per 100, or 56 students per 100 enrolled would meet a representation benchmark that we would want to see. Gateway courses are critical for advanced math pathway. So you all know that as well. We talk about access in 2 ways. Access to advanced coursework, so students being enrolled, being encouraged to enroll, and then students being able to access the content in a way that allows them to be successful. And that is very much about preparation before a student even gets to the advanced coursework level. So both of those access issues are important. One of the things we've been doing more and more of here at the Pritchard Committee is looking at potential trend going forward if we do nothing. So if we do nothing in the state, what the current trend line tells us is that we will see further reduction in students who are Black enrolling in AP classes. We will see further declines in students with Latino or Hispanic background enrolling in AP classes. If we do nothing, we will not see any change in the percent or the representation of students who are economically disadvantaged. And I think we would agree that we want to see all three of those areas increase, and that trend line increase, and success in those classes increase. So we need to be smart about the systemic reforms we support and that we encourage. And when we identify champions such as Representative Duval to help us move those system changes forward, we want to make sure they're targeted in responding to both the excellence and the equity issues that we've identified through the data. So with that, I want to turn it over to Delaney, who is going to walk us through what actually is in House Bill 190 and what does it mean for those of you across the state working in gifted and talented. What does it mean for us as a state? I also want to encourage each of you, as you have questions as we go through the presentation, I want you to go ahead and raise your hand or put a question in the chat, and I'll be monitoring those as Delaney goes through the presentation. So we can make this as much of a conversation as possible, rather than just you all sitting and getting what we have to share. So I'll start monitoring hands up and notes in the chat. And Delaney, take it away. I'll interject as needed.
Thank you, Bridget, and thank you, Dr. Roberts, for allowing us to talk about House Bill 190 and some of the work that the Pritchard Committee is doing to help increase access to advanced coursework opportunities for students across Kentucky. I'm Delaney Stevens. I'm the Director of Policy for Meaningful Diplomas here at the Pritchard Committee. And within our Meaningful Diploma portfolio sits a lot of the work that we're doing around advanced coursework. So I want to start by digging in a little bit more into the details of House Bill 190 that was passed earlier this year in 2025. And it really does provide a strong foundation for how we think about increasing access to advanced coursework and supporting districts and being able to do that. But there are still some limitations that we have observed, and we would like to see how do we help strengthen this bill moving forward and support districts in being able to implement provisions within their advanced coursework policies. And so key provisions of House Bill 190 by December 1st of 2025, every local board, school board, shall adopt a district plan for promoting advanced coursework. And these plans must address grades 4 through 12 in core subjects. So that includes language arts, math, social studies, and science. Additionally, the Kentucky Department of Education shall establish recommendations for using assessment data to support districts in implementing those plans. Specifically, KDE has been tasked in the bill with establishing recommendations for thinking about how we use preliminary assessment data. Most of the time, as you all well know, we don't get that assessment data back until schools typically don't get that assessment data back until the beginning of the school year. And so how can we leverage a preliminary data to be able to identify students that may be ready for advanced courses beginning that next year of enrollment? There are some optional elements, the May problem, as we're calling it. And so there are a number of provisions within the bill that districts may choose to adopt, but are not required. It's not a shall. This includes automatic enrollment for students that are meeting certain benchmarks, in particular, proficient and distinguished students, eligibility criteria for other students. So thinking about what are some of the additional criteria that we might be able to use beyond just our summative assessment data. Parent consent requirements for withdrawal, and so an opt-out instead of an opt-in, as well as principals being able to have the authority to withdraw students. And again, that is a may provision. And the last thing I want to note is enhanced family communication. And so how are districts thinking about within their policies, within the district plan, how are they enhancing family communication so that families are aware, prepared for their students being able to access and successfully participate in advanced coursework opportunities? There are some critical limitations that we've observed when it comes to fidelity of implementation. So right now, districts can adopt these plans without substantial implementation. This bill is really a requirement to adopt a plan and not necessarily a requirement to implement. And so that's something that we're paying attention to moving forward. There's not really an enforcement mechanism for that meaningful access expansion. So we're thinking about what does that mean for districts? What does it mean for the state? And then the last thing I want to note, and I'll talk a little bit more about this here in just a moment, but one of the things that our advanced coursework policy working group has noted on multiple occasions is that the bill lacks teeth. And so how can we think about strengthening provisions of the bill while also supporting implementation, supporting districts in being able to have the capacity to implement those things? So we've done considerable research around what works when it comes to increasing access and supporting students. And I want to call out a couple of things here. The first is a program that's already in place across Kentucky, and that's Advanced Kentucky's Access to Algebra program. And so they've seen some notable increases and gains in students being able to access Algebra 1 in particular in 8th grade, as well as additional supports and preparing them for being able to excel in those classes. We also, based on our research, have seen that universal screening is a very effective mechanism for thinking about how we're expanding access and identifying students, in particular beginning in early grades, so that we're not overlooking those students who may be eligible, who may have the capabilities and the capacity, but due to outdated policies or practices, they're getting overlooked a lot of the time. And as Bridget noted earlier, we are learning quite a bit from other states across the country. In particular, we've had many conversations with North Carolina. They implemented an automatic enrollment policy several years ago. And so this is a mandatory automatic enrollment policy across the state. It's not optional, so it's a shall and not a may. And within that policy, students that score proficient and meet certain benchmarks are automatically enrolled. And North Carolina started with math in middle school. They are expanding that automatic enrollment now to other subject areas and increasing not just middle school, but how they're thinking about the elementary age students. How does that apply to them? To go along with their automatic enrollment policy, they put in some pretty strong accountability measures that could help support that fidelity of implementation and increasing capacity for schools and districts to be able to implement. They've seen some pretty impressive results, 70 to 85% success rates for automatically enrolled students. They've seen pretty dramatic increases in underrepresented student groups. They have been able to maintain course quality and rigor, again, through increased capacity to schools and districts. But the very first year they implemented that automatic enrollment policy, they saw over 8,000 additional students enrolling in and increasing participation in advanced math classes in middle school. There's some other state examples I want to note as well. Texas has pursued and implemented similar automatic enrollment. They're seeing similar strong results. Illinois has really leaned into universal screening as a mechanism for increasing identification. They've seen a 180% identification increase because of some of the things they're doing. And Washington State is following suit with some of these policies. And so we're starting to see across the country an uptick in how states are thinking about advanced coursework, in particular, the role that automatic enrollment can play in making sure that students are being identified and getting the opportunity to participate. So I noted our advanced coursework policy working group that we have convened earlier this summer. This is a group of folks from across the state that we wanted to hear from early on to think about, from a policy standpoint, a statewide policy standpoint, how can we continue to examine the current foundation of House Bill 190, as well as ways to strengthen the bill moving forward into the 2026 legislative session and beyond. So we've convened this group to get their insights on what's working now, what are they hearing when it comes to current implementation of House Bill 190? How do we think about defining the ways we define advanced coursework and accelerated learning, and what are some of the key barriers that we need to overcome if we want to truly get toward increasing access and strengthening some of the components of 190? And so you can see here we've convened a number of different groups. I do want to note that our engagement and our work around this is not going to stop with these partners. And so we really do want to begin to hear directly from local districts, local school administrators, teachers, to truly understand what are some of the gaps, what are some of the barriers when it comes to not just implementing a strong House Bill 190 advanced coursework policy or plan, but if we're thinking about, things like automatic enrollment in middle school math or increasing teacher capacity and supports, what are some of the things that we need to be learning from local leaders? So with this policy working group, there are a few things that continue to come up when it comes to implementation challenges with House Bill 190. The first is around awareness. And so there is an awareness gap. Many educators, many district level leaders that we've talked to and that we're hearing from through this policy working group aren't very aware of some of the requirements within House Bill 190. So we need to continue to think about, how do we get the word out around this? How do we ensure that there are supports for districts to be able to not just plan for their plan, but also implement a strong policy. There are some funding barriers. In particular, a lot of smaller rural districts lack the resources for increasing course offerings. They might lack the teachers to be able to increase some of those course offerings, as well as definition clarity. And so how do we make sure that the definitions for advanced coursework and accelerated learning as defined in the bill are meeting the standards and the rigor that we want, and can help set up future wins around increasing access? And so making sure that those definitions are in some ways modernized, so that as we think about future investments, what is it going to take to increase access? How we're defining advanced coursework really does matter. Is assessment timing. And I noted this earlier. Assessment timing is an issue. And so the current assessment results don't necessarily align with course scheduling. In particular, if we think about policies like automatic enrollment, there is a disconnect there. There's a couple of themes that continue to emerge from our stakeholder feedback in this policy working group. And so we've discussed the potential need for a menu of options. What are different pathways or different approaches that can be taken from schools and districts based on district context, small, rural versus urban, the capacity, teacher capacity, funding capacity, things like that. So that's something we continue to examine. And as well as how do we connect advanced coursework to that pipeline for students. So thinking about ensuring seamless transitions and being ready for college and career, how can we strengthen some of the approaches within House Bill 190 so that beginning in early grades, students see a clear connection to that real world application of learning, and it sets them up for a strong foundation moving forward. Teacher capacity is a major limiting factor, though, and that continues to come up in our discussions. So right now we are moving into a legislative session, a budget session in 2026. And so this policy working group and the work that we're doing at the Pritchard Committee, we're really thinking about what are the opportunities, what's that critical path if we want to strengthen House Bill 190 provisions as well as support districts in being able to see increases in advanced learning, advanced coursework opportunities. So
Delaney, let's go back to that slide for a minute, and I think it's a good time for a couple of questions in the chat. One in particular, a few individuals have asked, but I'm going to read the question from Dr. Toddy Adams. I wonder if there's a decline in AP enrollment due to dual credit enrollment. So in the working group that you've put together, is there conversation about dual credit enrollment eroding enrollment in AP, and any conversation about quality in dual credit enrollment that would suggest the same amount or comparable rigor?
That's a great question. I think there are some connections that can be made between AP and dual credit enrollments. So we are in Kentucky, we're seeing a dramatic increase in dual credit enrollment. We've seen additional investments from the state as well, not just within dual credit scholarships, but the Work Ready Scholarship. And so as it stands now, students can get scholarships to take up to 12 dual credit courses throughout their high school career. And so that does have an impact on the choices that students have, the decisions that they're making. I saw another question in the chat related to this around concerns around rigor and GPA grades. And so, with AP courses, they don't just enroll, they have to take the AP test. And so what are the implications? What's the impact of those AP tests when it comes to scholarships, key scholarships, dual credit, things like that? So, that's kind of a high level answer. I don't know if that was what you're looking for.
That's good. And Tyler, I noticed you popped into the chat that you're working on a map that shows enrollment in dual credit and AP. So I know that will be interesting to everybody. And likewise, you also popped in an article that was in the Challenge magazine from fall of 2017, where you were already talking about this. So none of these things are new issues, we know. And ultimately, what we want to ensure is that students have rigor in the classroom that stretches their learning in such a way that sets them up for success in post-secondary environments, as well as increasingly career environments that demand critical thinking. So Delaney, as you move now to the next slide around policy solutions, do the policy solutions attend to insurance of rigor across different vehicles, and or the issue of students not taking more rigorous classes because of GPA or KEYS money?
That's a great question. So we have looked at a number of entry points, potential entry points around policy solutions. And I think, to your point, Bridget, your question, there's something to be said for, um, you know, even within our meaningful diploma work, the idea that students are equipped to make informed decisions about their futures and what are the things that are required to be able to do that. And so one of the things that we've talked about and looked at is what are the things that we need to be doing around really robust advising for students so that whenever they get into, in particular in middle school and high school, they're prepared to make those decisions. And how is that connected to enrolling in courses like AP, like dual credit? What are the advantages? What are the benefits? What are the trade-offs, depending on their interests, their strengths, and their future plans? And so there are some things that we are looking at around that, as well as how do we increase teacher capacity? And so, things related to whether it's HQIRs or increased, whether it's professional development or coaches, additional coaches to support, especially on the early side with literacy and math. How do we ensure that we're continuing some of the investments that the state has made with early literacy and math efforts? And what's the connection between that and early access to increasing advanced coursework enrollments? So that's one area. There are some targeted funding enhancements that I think we should probably consider. We've also looked at the virtual learning infrastructure across Kentucky, in particular for those districts that may not be equipped to provide additional advanced coursework opportunities or classes. How can we leverage virtual learning? How can we leverage shared resources among districts, or the role that co-ops play in increasing some of these opportunities? And so we're really having to think about, we can't necessarily just have a blanket policy or a blanket funding formula for the whole state, because every district has different needs. And so what does that mean from a policy standpoint? And what does that mean from a funding, from an investment standpoint as well? I do want to be mindful of our time, so I'm going to continue moving here. One of the things, again, that we continue to be mindful about and concerned about is the resources that districts and schools have to be able to increase access to advanced coursework. What are the things coming down from the state, whether it's KDE or others, that are supporting districts in developing their advanced coursework plans, their policies, the requirements related to House Bill 190, thinking about, what does a model policy look like? But one of the things I want to note that's going to be released very soon, probably in early September, is a continued work around Pritchard Committee's groundswell toolboxes. And so we have a suite of toolbox resources currently. A lot of those right now are around early care and education and our meaningful diploma work, but we have been developing increasing access to advanced coursework toolbox. And so within that, there are a number of different resources that are meant for local communities, districts, local education stakeholders. And essentially, it's if we do nothing else and we want to increase access to advanced coursework, here are some resources where you can start. That includes making the case for increasing access. There's a lot of data that we've integrated into these toolbox resources. But what we're really leaning into is strategy. And so what are the strategies that can help increase access? What are some things that might be considered as part of a plan, a House Bill 190 plan for districts? What do those strategies look like? As well as policies and practices, programs and practices that that can support implementation of those strategies. So be on the lookout for that Groundswell Toolbox. Whenever we have that live, we'll be sure to share that with KAGE members, but we're really excited to release this. A lot of research has gone into it, and we hope that it can be used to strengthen and support provisions within House Bill 190 and the work that local schools and districts are doing around advanced coursework.
Great, Delaney, thank you for that that presentation. Delaney and I are available to any of you. Dr. Roberts, Tyler can get our information out to you if you want to be part of the conversation in the working group on this issue. Monica, I know you've mentioned a couple times teacher capacity. And maybe some innovative ways in which students and teachers can better maybe match up interests and rigor of teaching, and appreciate both of those comments, and would love, as the conversation continues to evolve, Dr. Roberts, for us to be able to explore those innovative ideas together as a way to, I think it both responds to excellence and equity, particularly in a state that is so very rural. Access to excellence in teaching and a variety of different disciplines is something that we struggle with as a state, and innovative ways to smooth all of that out would be helpful over the long run. So, Monica, thank you for your comments there. Dr. Roberts, thank you for the opportunity you gave the Pritchard Committee, Delaney, and I to present.
And I want to thank you, Bridget and Delaney, and I want to say to everyone on this call, this is not just about gifted children, but gifted children will certainly benefit from the implementation of House Bill 190. It is for 4th through 12th grade. Once we have young people showing up in early grades that they're ready for advanced learning, they need opportunities to continue learning every day in school. And that may be from cluster grouping or working in a variety of ways to ensure that all classes are not heterogeneous, because we know that a heterogeneously grouped 4th, 5th grade class could have up to 7 different achievement levels, which makes an impossible situation for the teacher who is trying to see that every child is learning. So let's keep thinking on this particular topic. House Bill 190 is just the start, and other states, as was mentioned, are coming on to doing this, with the most recent one perhaps being Virginia. Lots is going on. Kentucky must be an important part of ensuring that all children have the opportunity to learn every day in school. So thank you, Oodles. And I'm going to introduce Brian Mefford.
Dr. Robert,
yes.
Before we do that, can I just mention that we launched a research study earlier this week that went to all gifted and talented coordinators across the state to gather some data about your perspective on planning in your district for advanced coursework. So if you have not already completed that, I request that you check your email for that. We'll send a reminder out on Monday. We really appreciate your feedback and perspective on it. And if you want to send any questions about the plans that you're doing our way, send that to us. I'll put my email in the chat again. We're happy to provide feedback and be thought partners with you.
I will cheer for you in following up with that to see that we've got the broadest perspective on what's going on in terms of planning for advanced coursework. So Brian Mefford is my friend, and he is also the founder of Connected Nation, which was a global technology consulting firm launched 22 years ago, and he served as CEO chairman for a decade, and Connected Nation continues. He has been co-owner until the last 6 weeks of Vitro Incorporated, a telecom software company, head of strategy for them. And I know him as an advocate for students who are ready to learn at high levels. And one thing he does in Bowling Green that's of interest, he's co-owner of the White Squirrel Brewery. So Brian, talk to us about why our topic today is a tie-in to workforce development. What does Kentucky need?
Glad to do it, Dr. Roberts, and thank you as always for the including me in conversations like this. Before I answer that question, I just want to say thank you to the entire group. I'm sitting here as a Kentuckian and as a parent on a Saturday morning with you guys, and just thankful for the work that you do, that you're continuing to do, and recognizing the challenges that are ahead, and leading by example, and how you are working to solve, do the hard work and solve difficult challenges. So thank you, and thanks to Bridget and Delaney. I have organized my part of this the presentation today almost as a footnote to the comments that Dr. Roberts has already made, and to Bridget and Delaney's presentation. So to Dr. Roberts' question, I feel like I'm here in part to represent just a single perspective from my vantage point as we consider, how to round out and improve not just House Bill 190, but just general preparation for personal and professional growth of our students. So I'm coming to today's conversation as an employer. I've been hiring mostly Kentuckians for the past 25 years, and in technology, in a wide range of technology. And have also hired across the country and globally. So have been able to see some striking sort of differences and similar and also similarities in how students are being prepared and challenged to meet future sort of a lot of technology based driven challenges in employment. I've also been a trustee on the board at Center College for the past 15 years. So that has helped me round out some understanding of, what the college there is seeing with incoming applicants and students and how they've adjusted. Also, just last thing about my professional background, just so you know where I'm coming from. I serve as the chairman of our, it's called the Intermodal Transpark Authority. It's basically our regional industrial development board. So that enough about that. But again, I just wanted you to know where sort of how my brain is approaching this topic today. And again, just also as a Kentuckian and a parent that cares a lot about these things too. I grew up on a farm family, in a farm family rather, on the farm. My brothers and I were first the generation college students, but I had parents that refused to let us take easy paths, in about anything we did. I remember taking piano lessons I was probably 10 or 11, and had a pretty challenging recital assignment from my piano instructor. My mom was tickled to death about that. It was a Mozart sonatina, if I remember right. I wasn't getting it, so I wanted to take the easy way out. And actually, I learned my old Kentucky home. And so I remember playing it on the piano, and I was loving it. I loved the song. I was mastering it. It was very easy. It was an easy version anyway. My mom came in and said, "That's pretty, but what is that?" And I said, "That's what I'm playing for my recital now." And she said, she was having none of that. "No, you're not. You're going back to the sonatina." And so she always challenged us too. I had a grandfather that didn't complete high school, but he was always sort of doing math calculations, related to crop yields and just input applications of various inputs on the farm, returns on investment. And so I learned a lot from him too. What I'm going to speak about just for the next 10 minutes or so is to Dr. Roberts' question: how are these things impacting the workforce in Kentucky as I see it? And so I'm going to speak. You have to speak to AI. I will not go down, hopefully, a long rabbit trail there, but just can't really have this conversation without addressing that on some level. And then just I'll speak to technology in general and just sort of philosophy of how those things, how we should be thinking about those things as we shape, how we're educating our students and challenging our students to higher level, higher order thinking, and just not taking the easy pathway, honestly. And so some of the data that Bridget presented, Delaney presented, speak to that. So again, this is sort of a footnote type presentation to some of that data. Dr. Roberts, I want to make sure that sort of frame is useful and helpful before I jump in deeper here.
It's perfect.
Okay, thank you. So I was in graduate school, business school, when sort of the business part of the internet started winding up, and it was a program that was out west, out on the West Coast, and highly competitive program with a lot of smart people who were leaving our MBA program, 90% of the way through, because people like Jeff Bezos were building a new version of an online bookstore. I don't know if you'll remember that's how Amazon started. Anyway, we were fine. We thought a lot. We thought we were smarter than we were, just to be blunt. And so we were totally bought into the idea of the internet. I mean, we said it literally: the internet changes everything. And on some level, it certainly did. But we were jumping in with both feet, and jumping in with everything ahead of sort of that technology's sort of playing out, and so we could be more predictive about where it truly was going, and that that we weren't taking like sort of silly jobs with silly companies. I shouldn't say that, but they were. I mean, what we were doing, how we were behaving as businesses was, there were some notable silly examples. I had friends that went to work for pets.com, for instance. Pets.com had negative revenue for 2 years, and then they, ran a Super Bowl ad, I remember, and just so kind of silly business principles. But so my point is that feels a bit like where we are with AI today. I mean, it's clearly a disruptive technology, unpredictable. It's creating a lot of uncertainty in how we prepare ourselves and certainly our students for the jobs of the future, because that shakeout, I mean, it's nascent, right? We're in the opening innings of the AI game, and wondering and dreaming about where that will take us. Um, you know, and it's a broad impact, right? So it it is impacting today demand for attorneys, advertisers, creators, line workers, farmers. I mean, it just impacting everything, and it will continue, as you know, to have a deeper and sort of increasingly disruptive impact on our economy. Uh, I I tell people regularly now that, just on a personal level, my wife is an attorney, so I love attorneys. I love that one in particular. Um, but I have been sorry if there's an attorney or two on the line, but I have nearly stopped using our sort of corporate counsel, our corporate attorneys, certainly for a lot of activity, because I can, as long as I'm asking the right questions and I'm willing to sort of challenge myself and challenge responses that come back, um, I can get a lot further. I received a bill, several months back, and I was looking at it, and there was a $260 charge for an assistant and a junior attorney who were working on language for a letter they were going to send me. It wasn't even so. Anyway, I can use the technology and do that, but again, it's sort of representative. It is representative of what we have to be equipped, what we should be equipping our learners with, these skill sets of being able to ask the right questions, being able to take a risk that says, I think I can solve for this challenge. I need to think about it in sort of broad terms. I need to employ the technology that's available to me, and I need to be able to iterate. I need to work to improve the responses and the information, the data that are coming back to me. On that note, just the one data point that I'll throw out today is this from Financial Times. I think it was last year, but it resonated. It resonates with me. The forecast suggests that up to half of tech jobs, administrative jobs, and managerial roles for those under 30 could be automated and basically automated through technology, so that those jobs don't exist and over the next 5 years. When I listen to folks in the AI field who are people that I tend to listen to, that seems to ring true. And so when you think about that as an educator, I mean, these are profound. It's kind of a profound moment where, half of the jobs that we've been educating our students to pursue, are likely to if not go away, then certainly be substantially augmented through automation. And so our relationship with those jobs is going to be completely different than it's been for the past 100 years. And that's why this conversation to me is so important, because we have to have educators who understand that that's what's coming down the pike, but are committed to finding ways to challenge our students with again, challenge them towards higher order of thinking, analytics, analytical capabilities, and risk taking. And that's where I'll come back to in just a moment, sort of my perspective on those types of recommendations of how we need to be equipping our students. Right now in Kentucky, the jobs most plentiful and most vacant, they just require that higher level of analytical capacity and problem solving. And I hopefully will not used too many sort of loaded words or terms today without realizing it. It is because I don't realize they're loaded, honestly, if I use them, because that's not my intent. But I know pathways could be one of those. But from my perspective as an employer, and just sort of a trend analyzer, for lack of a better term, is we shouldn't buy into the idea that we can create a standard pathway to success when the problem statements are in a constant state of change. That just seems like common sense. Like we need alternative pathways, nimble pathways, flexible pathways that have, on ramps and off ramps, that we can shape on behalf of our learners, as technology evolves, as the job market evolves, and our workforce needs evolve. Just real quick, like the metaphor for this for me is in Bowling Green, Warren County, our population is growing leaps and bounds. And so that, like for everybody anywhere, that everywhere, that creates traffic challenges. And so, land is not we're not making more land, so it's tough just to continue to expand roads. And it's known that doesn't usually solve local traffic challenges. So in Warren County, we've been putting in roundabouts, but which are working. It's a love-hate relationship with our roundabouts here. But the thing that has struck me as most creative and interesting out in the rural part of the county where I am are these J turns. And I don't know if you're familiar with J turns, but as they were building them, it was the most perplexing construction project I'd ever seen, because as the traffic increased, we were having lots of wrecks at key intersections because there weren't lights. You can't have a light at every rural intersection. So they built these J turns, which is basically you're doing a U-turn, but in a J shape across traffic, and merging into traffic going the other direction. That's how you turn. So it's a gradual turn and then the merge. Bear with me on this, because I started looking into why, what's the effectiveness and utility of a J turn. And I found out that it's sort of, there's as much social science as there is sort of construction science. The idea is that instead of just having an intersection where people tend to be looking at their phone, not paying full attention, just kind of driving straight down the road, lots of wrecks. This J-turn idea causes people to realize that this is something different. I'm getting ready to enter a strange pattern of traffic here, and I have to be alert, and I have to be paying attention to what the people on the other side of the road are doing as I navigate this U-turn type of U-turn, and both ways. Like as I'm coming into a J-turn from the opposite direction, it's different. I'm mentally sort of tuned into this is a challenge. I need to be paying attention. So anyway, that's a bit of a belabored point on a metaphor, but one that works for me to say, that's sort of where we are. I think as educators and as employers, we need to just stop sending people, through these intersections where, honestly, they can be quite mindless sometimes, or certainly not higher level thinking. It's just what we've been doing. It's what we do. And not to overuse the metaphor, but, then that's where the wrecks tend to happen and the not great stuff happens. And so that idea of challenging with new, novel sort of patterns, pathways, if you will, is attractive. I'm gonna wrap up. I'll say a couple points about our technology broadly, and then takeaways I want to leave with you. And I'm seeing this with employers that I'm working with as part of industrial development in a fascinating way, that technological change is has created this just-in-time demand for job skills. That used to be a phrase used for, tended to be factory driven, like we're going to make an adjustment on the line that's sort of a just in time, like Toyota has been big on implementing those kind of just in time adjustments to solving manufacturing challenges. That's sort of where we're going broadly with technology, that in any industry, we have to be able to identify a market shift, identify a challenge with productivity or efficiency, identify a nascent technology that's coming online, and to be able to adapt in real time, basically. And Dr. Roberts and I were talking about, a big example that we're seeing in this part of the state with, but it's true across the country. You think about EV batteries and battery production, and you think about the last 10 years, and it's sort of ebbed and flowed across the curve, where, let's say, and I'll just generalize here, but say 10 years ago, we started heading up this curve for projected demand. Everybody's going to be driving EVs in 5 years, so we need all these batteries. That didn't pan out for a number of reasons, going back 10 years ago. And so there was a downturn then, but we had built capacity for battery production. And so in Kentucky, we have two of the largest EV battery plants, and they're actually in this region where we are down here in Bowling Green in Glendale, but two of the largest EV battery production facilities in the country. The idea is there's going to be thousands of jobs created initially for people building EV batteries. Well, as that hasn't panned out, you see the engineer, and they tend to be young engineers who are at these companies to begin, because they're setting the course. They're having to adjust. They're having to imagine, how do we take the capacity that we built for EV electric vehicle batteries and evolve that into something that's going to have more mass appeal, and they're doing that. Yeah, again, that's a skill set. It's engineering based for sure, but it's also other skill sets, tangential skill sets with people who have been equipped to solve problems and to think through. I mean, these folks are working around whiteboards and computer screens, and they're inventing the next kind of battery that can be built to do things like store energy from the electric grid, so that we don't have, rolling brownouts like we did in Texas, I think last year or the year before. Just novel uses of the similar technology, but that is responsive to sort of where the market finds itself. Let me end with just 4 takeaways that I've outlined here. I'm sorry, 5 takeaways, and I'll be quick because they're somewhat redundant to what I've already talked about. But first off, advanced coursework to build thinking and problem solving skills. I'm stating the obvious, but that's critical. It's critical starting at the earliest stages of learning, and basically continuing to evolve that kind of preparation and that kind of approach through the entire life cycle of learning, which doesn't stop at high school or college. It truly is a required lifetime of learning approach. Second, the ability to ask the right questions and to solve problems, is quickly becoming the most highly sought skill. I have a son that's entered law school this year, and it's a fairly prestigious law school. And I was struck by the fact that their approach is not the traditional memorization kind of approach, because they're saying you can go use the technology to get your basis, for precedent. We want you to think more about sort of the comprehensive approach to solving the issues that clients or whoever is going to be bringing to you. The jobs economy is going to see radical changes. Number 3, radical changes as AI sets itself up to upend traditional careers, and employers seek problem solvers and deep thinkers. The power of AI is not in pushing a button that says go on ChatGPT. It's understanding how I can use my understanding and skills to ask the right questions and guide the technology, toward solutions that I think are possible, and then I'm able to test and iterate with the technology efficiently. That means point 4, these trends will reward workers and learners, professionals who combine curiosity, creativity, and continual learning. The 5th point, last point, is the willingness to take risks and to not punish failure are more paramount than ever. And that's a cultural shift that I think, lends itself to your specialty, your passion for gifted education and education generally. But we tend to, and this is a whole different presentation and topic, but it's a bit of a Southern thing to sort of punish failure and to hold our kids back and say, that sounds risky, that feels risky. Let's do something a little different. And that's not true everywhere. It's not true everywhere. And we need to adopt sort of that push to allowing our kids and our learners, encouraging them to take those risks, and then making it okay when it doesn't work out exactly how they thought it would. So some basic and fundamental sort of scientific hypotheses building, but applied broadly to skill sets. So I will end there. I thank you again for the opportunity to be with you. I'm encouraged and inspired by the work you're doing. And again, that's primarily as a parent myself. But thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Dr. Roberts.
Brian, I so appreciate your takeaways. I think you highlight why we absolutely must be looking for the most advanced learning opportunities, and they've got to be somewhat different than we've always thought about them. They must be looking at how do we think. Thank you ever so much.
My pleasure, and happy after the fact to take email questions and continue the conversation however I can be helpful. Thanks, Julia.
I think we're going to move on just for keeping our time going this morning, but I think we could easily follow up with questions that people would add to the chat. So thanks. So Erin Timmons is the Director of Advanced Kentucky. So Erin, tell us what Advanced Kentucky is. It's been around a long time, but do we all know what it is?
Well, first off, thank you very much, Julie and Tyler, for hosting and inviting me to participate today. For those of you that may have been on meetings previously. Anthony Myers was previously the executive director of Advanced Kentucky. He has since been promoted to the chief operations officer of KSCC, which is the Kentucky Science and Technology Corporation, which is where Advanced Kentucky is, housed under. It's our parent organization. So I have assumed his role. So I am going to attempt to do as good of a job as he has set the bar for. So Advanced Kentucky has been around since 2008. We are a nonprofit, based in Lexington, but we have team members across Kentucky. So we support we have programs that support K through 12 students. The program I think I'm here to talk about today is a college readiness program, which was the original sole program of Advanced Kentucky back when we started in 2008. We support expanding access to all students in advanced placement, math, science, English, computer science, and capstone courses, and really advanced coursework in general. To Dr. Roberts' point, but the way our metrics and the way that we base our program is on AP exams and success. When we go and engage with schools or individual teachers, we probably say the word growth, I don't know, too many times for them to keep track of. So we like to focus on growth of the number of courses that a school offers. We like to keep track of the growth of the number of students in an exam or in a course, along with the numbers of students taking the exam and being successful in earning a qualifying score of 3 or higher. So those are all metrics that we report on. And we are happy to say that we have had tremendous success since 2008. We continue to bring on new teachers in schools every year. It's a 3-year commitment. And during that time, teachers and students receive substantial professional development, professional learning opportunities. We also have financial support for students and teachers as well. So aside from Advanced Kentucky and the work we're doing, I did want to speak on just the current landscape of AP. So I have a few slides here to show. Hold on one second. All right. So the first thing, just 2025 AP exam performance. The AP exams are typically administered in May, the first round of administrations anyways. So AP exam scores were released to schools and teachers and students in July. So this information all comes from College Board that I'm happy to share links for, pass them on to Julia or Tyler. But anyways, the percentage of students that earned a qualifying score of 3 or higher increased or stayed the same in 34 of 40 courses compared to 2024. And this is globally. This is not specific to Kentucky. I have a little bit of Kentucky information here later on. For those of you unfamiliar with the AP program, they exist to provide college level coursework in high school. Students that earn a score of 3 are the way College Board and AP defines that is they are qualified for the next course that they would take in college. And the AP program standards, you can see that third bullet there. The percentage of students that earn qualifying scores of 3 or higher are typically 60 to 75%, which is equivalent to a C in college or better. By contrast, it says that standard setting studies show that typically it's 75 to 90% in actual courses in college. So the rigor that AP provides is one of the main selling points, I think, along with the consistency that you can be assured of that a student that is taking AP English language and composition in Maysville, Kentucky is the same as taking it in Los Angeles, California. So the portability and just the consistency from college admission side, I think is one of the benefits of the AP courses. All right, so what makes a score? If you follow AP exams and the release of their information, so you'll see that the percentage of scores are released about how many students earn a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. But how do they determine what is a 3 or what is a 4, and how do they know that those are really what makes a student qualified or well qualified for the next college course? So over the past few years, especially, the AP program has been transitioning to more of an evidence-based method for setting their scoring standards. This is in contrast to what they used to do previously, which were small faculty panels, which were the best method at the time. But switching to this new approach allows the College Board and their psychometricians to reach out to a much larger data set. So it's a much larger number of professors, colleges, students, and all of that goes into them deciding and measuring and determining what does make a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this large data scale collection is much more, I think, accurate to what the actual college perspective and grading practices are like. And, I think sometimes we see there are huge swings in the numbers of 1, 2s, 3s, 4s, or 5s for a particular course. And I think by switching to this evidence-based method, it's going to lessen that, and it's going to make things more in line with colleges and their credit awarding policies. So these are some studies and research that College Board has done about AP exams. So I think one of the things is that encouraging students to take an advanced course, be it AP or not. I think sometimes students feel like, oh, well, I really need to take as many as I can. And I think that there was a stigma at some point about, to be an AP student, you need to be able to take 4, 5, 6 AP courses to really be, make a difference. And what this shows is that the biggest impact to 4-year attainment is based on the first and the second AP courses, which is the blue, as well as the actual attainment of the qualifying score, which is the graph to the right. So we obviously want to engage many more students in advanced coursework and encourage them to take that. And I think by convincing them that this is not something that you need to feel like you should be able to take 4 or 5 AP courses, really we want you to be able to take 1 or 2. And as you can see, the effect that is gained from taking more than 5 or 6 really does level off and does not become statistically significant compared to those first couple. So that's the effect on college on-time degree completion. The next slide here talks about college enrollment. So students that earn scores of 1, 2, 3, 4s, or 5s are more likely to enroll in college compared to students that are not taking AP courses. And again, I think this is because we are exposing students to what an advanced college level course is like, but we are still providing supports because we do realize that they are high school students. So that is one of the big points of emphasis of Advanced Kentucky's College Readiness Program, is that we work with teachers to not only find these students and attract them and encourage them to take an advanced course, but we also provide supports to help them persevere and be successful in that course once they're there. And then in terms of GPAs, a lot of students, feel also the pressure of the AP exam, and students, even back to when I was an AP student, I felt like if I did not get a 3 or higher, I just wasted my time. I should have just taken the easy way out. But the study here shows that the impact on a GPA for a student that took an AP course but only scored a 1 or 2. So what this slide here shows students that scored a 1 or 2 in the AP course that then went on to have to take that course again in college. That number at the top is how much higher their GPA was compared to a student that was taking that college level course for the first time. So just because you may have not gotten a qualifying score on the AP statistics exam, so you had to take your intro stats class again in college, compared to a student who's taking intro stats for the first time, the student who scored a 2 is going to have on average a 0.36 higher boost to their GPA. So the experience of being in that advanced placement course, regardless of the outcome on the exam, is still beneficial for their college experience. And then for high school, these charts here, these graphs show the percentage likelihood that a student will take future subsequent AP exams. So by encouraging them to take their first AP exam, even if they scored just a 1 or 2, they're going to be more likely to not just take another AP class in their next year, but also having a greater chance of being successful. Exam participation for this past year grew by 7%, and the 5 AP courses with the largest growth were there. I'm going to take some time to focus on AP Pre-Calculus and AP Seminar. Those are two of the newer courses that the College Board offers. So this is where we have some Kentucky performance data. So you can see right there, so remember, it was 7% growth across all AP courses, but in Kentucky for AP Pre-Calculus, we increased test takers by 13% compared to the previous year, and AP Seminar was up 6%. And you can see that there was not much of a change compared to the global percentage of students scoring 3 or higher. This is a point that for us is Advanced Kentucky. AP Pre-Calculus, we did a special 1-year cohort to really get this course off the ground 2 years ago when it first launched. And we felt we were responsible for a significant amount of not just students taking the class, but also numbers of students that earned qualifying scores based on the professional learning supports that we provided. For AP Seminar, we are highly encouraging AP Seminar to be used as an English 10 course. That is an approved thing through KDE that they will allow AP Seminar to be taught as an English 10 course as long as it's by an English teacher. And we are finding that teachers that do that in our program are having a tremendous success. And you can see even statewide, the percentage of scores that are 3 or higher compared to globally. So we are very proud of how much of a role we've played in the expansion of AP Pre-Calculus and AP Seminar across Kentucky. And then finally, my final slide here is about kind of where the future of AP, at least in terms of new innovations. So AP Career Kickstart is in pilot phases for those 3 courses there: AP Business with Personal Finance, AP Cybersecurity, and AP Networking. This is an initiative by College Board to reach into the CTE world. So this is all brand new. These courses are going to help with the career attainment and industry certifications that both employers are looking for, as well as what current existing pathways are in high school. So each course is going to have its own exam or certification procedure and policy. The course and the development of that has been in consultation with industry professionals to help make sure the course is meeting and delivering on the skills that are needed for students to be successful in a career tied to these courses. So this is a very exciting innovation, I think, that is going to hopefully merge the AP world with the CTE world. I think a lot of times students, teachers, administrators feel that if you are in the CTE world or the CTE pathways, you are not in the AP world, and that cannot be further from the truth, especially when it comes to advanced pathways and different the advanced manufacturing and all of the different parts of that. There is certainly a need for high, rigorous, advanced level options, regardless if it's going to go down the traditional college route or not. I think these courses provide the exposure and the training that students need to be successful, and that is the intent for College Board. So those are my quick slides. Again, Advanced Kentucky, we support specifically the math, science, English, computer science, and capstone courses. So we are happy to consult and engage and reach out or talk to any interested teacher administrator about bringing our supports to your school, to your individual teachers. And I think that a lot of times people might see Advanced Kentucky and they see our ties to AP and they think, oh, this is an AP program, this is not a dual credit program. And while it's true that we measure our success and our metrics are tied to AP, we are certainly not we do not embrace or support dual credit. Many schools that we work with have thriving dual credit programs, and we see our role as coming in and offering opportunities for more students to engage in advanced coursework where there might be gaps. So if there is not a dual credit option at a particular grade level or in a particular content area, then we help to fill that need. We also work to hopefully show where there is overlap where we can collaborate. So for instance, if there's a dual credit provider that allows the AP curriculum to be overlaid on top of the course, so where students can get the best of both worlds, then we have teachers that do that as well. So we certainly are welcoming to any type of setup that schools have, and what we want to do is work with them to provide as many advanced opportunities for all of their students as possible. So
Thank you so much, Aaron. Are there any questions in the chat for him? Well, thank you, Aaron. And I'm going to introduce Tyler Clark and Jennifer Wilson from the Center for Gifted Studies at WKU to talk about the Talent Identification Program of Kentucky, TIP Kentucky, as a way for us to have a really good idea who's ready for advanced coursework. So Tyler and Jennifer, you're on.
And before we get
Great.
started, I see a raised hand. If you can put in the chat any questions that you have, or in the Q&A box, we will make sure to address them for you. Jennifer, you want to start?
Absolutely. I appreciate having a little time today to talk about the Talent Identification Program. I know that several of the folks that are on today have been involved with the TIP Kentucky program. However, for those of you who are new to Gifted and Talented, if there's a few of you online, I just want you to be aware that we are more than happy to work with you at any point in time throughout the year with our TIP Kentucky program. It is, I don't think we can really say it's relatively new anymore, but in the scheme of things, it's a rather new program, which started back when, I guess you'd say 2020, when Duke TIP closed their program, and Dr. Roberts and her team at the time decided we needed something for the students in the state of Kentucky. So this program has evolved and come out through that. There we go. And our primary goal, of course, is identifying and supporting academic talent, not just throughout the state. We do get that question often. Is this something that's strictly for Kentucky? Obviously, Kentucky is where we want to put a lot of our emphasis and our forces. However, we do take students and families and educators that have questions and want to do some above level assessments from other areas of the country as well. And of course, the primary components where Duke TIP we've often had the programming and recognition for many years, for over 40 years, I think Julia said, with some of our programming. The above level assessments is a newer component, which we started back in 2021. And often families, students, academics in the world, they're all asking, why do you do this above level assessment? We've got plenty of testing going on at the school right now. And I think a lot of the folks here today also confirmed the need for above level assessments. Often your grade level assessments just aren't what's working for students who are high ability. It breaks those academic ceilings for students who are performing well above their grade level and what the grade level assessments are doing. It also helps inform those educators and the families what the students are ready to learn. And it's not in terms of just one composite score, but you're looking at 4 different academic subject areas. So you're determining the student's challenge that is needed based on each subject area of math, science, English, and language arts or reading. And of course, the data that is used, people often ask in the GT world, is this something that we can use to help support when we're identifying? There is no test, as we all know, that catches every facet of a student's academic potential or abilities. However, this assessment or the assessment for whichever grade level you choose can be used for supporting data for that student in the school system. Tyler, you want to add anything to that?
I think a lot of times we will give an assessment and we will get the score back and we say, well, this is the score and move on. And I think assessment in those cases, I know that some people will disagree with me, but that is a waste of everybody's time when you do the assessment and you don't look at the results and do anything with the results. So that's something that we're very passionate about here with TIP Kentucky. When we're giving above level assessments, we want to make sure that we're not just giving you a score. We want to make sure that we're also giving you the resources to know how to interpret that score and what you may do in your school district with different students based upon how they perform in the various areas. So we have an interpretation report that we have collaborated with folks at the Bell and Blank Center at the University of Iowa to create. We are now creating those internally and sending those out. If you have any feedback for us, on what would make those interpretation reports more helpful to you and to parents, please reach out to Jennifer or me. We are wanting to make these where they are useful and are able to answer the questions that you have about how a student is performing.
I'm not sure if Renee is online. I did a quick scan and I didn't see her, but she said it so well. I had asked for a presentation for her to give me a little insight with her perspective. Renee is in Elizabethtown and she's a GT coordinator there. And I just loved her quote because it captures it all for educators. Removing the ceiling on assessments is crucial in providing appropriate services for our high potential learners. Above level testing paints a more vivid picture of the learner's true abilities, which in turn serves as a foundation for school personnel to develop an effective service plan that aligns closely with the student's individual learning needs. And that pretty much sums it up. I just love that quote, and you'll probably see it again at some other GT event because it's just, she did a great job with that. I want to mention, because a lot of educators get a lot of questions thrown at them from once you start inviting families to take an above level assessment, they may say, well, why would we take this above level assessment? And we have a couple of very short 2-minute videos that are on our website, and you are welcome to share them through the links that we have here, and it's on the website as well. But it gives you a little bit more perspective, and I guess it's just an easy way to help the families understand or better understand why your student would want to take this above level assessment. They're not in your education world, so they're not always fully tuned into what's happening in the classroom. And some of your families perhaps may not know, if it's early on, that their child is performing highly on the regular grade level assessments. So these different videos kind of give you more perspective. Tyler, you want to explain them a little bit? Or
Jennifer, the quote that you had from Renee on the last slide, and these videos, they made me think of a conversation. I think you were in it the other day. The person was talking about how in education, we talk about differentiation from the standpoint of product, process, and content. We talk about that, and we understand that we need to differentiate that material to support a range of learners. But she went on to say that we have not gotten to the idea of differentiation of assessment. And really what above level assessment is doing is you are differentiating the assessment. So you see a student, and in this first video on the left-hand side, you see Alexis, Henry, and Sophia. On their grade level assessment, they're performing about the same on each of those individual levels. So that is the assessment that you give to everybody in the school, no matter who they are, what their ability level is. That's the grade level assessment. All three of those students are showing the same ability level on that assessment. When we think about lifting that ceiling, the assessment ceiling, and differentiating that assessment to say, okay, is Alexis needing additional services to help her in all of these areas, in one of these areas, none of these areas? The above level assessment data will help you with understanding what services need to be put in place for these students in each of those individual areas. So I thought that the whole idea of differentiation of assessment, that was a new concept to me. And I thought that Renee's quote really highlighted that. And then on the right-hand side, we also have a video that's talking about how are you measuring things. So if we had a ruler that we were measuring someone's height, or a measuring tape, I guess a ruler would be too short. But if we had a measuring tape that was measuring height and our measuring tape was only 5 feet long, would you just say that for somebody who is above that measuring tape, would you say they're 5 feet tall? No, you would find a longer measuring tape and find out what is their actual height. That's kind of a nice analogy for above level assessment. You don't just say they are in the 99th percentile grade level, call it at the end of the day. You give them an assessment that will show you how far above that grade level they're ready to work. So those two videos are good at explaining the why of above level assessment. We also have, Jennifer, I think we have a third video that's out there, or maybe it's not posted yet, but on who should take above level assessments. And that,
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's on the website right now.
if not, we'll get that linked. But it goes through who would be eligible for taking above level assessments. This is not something that everyone in your school would take. It's for those students that are performing well on grade level, and we want to see how much better they can perform. What we recommend is they're performing in the top 10% on at least one subject area. It doesn't have to be all of them, one of them only. And I think we'll get to that in the slide coming up.
And the two assessments, we've got a new one this year. We've recently, Bell and Blank is, I guess, closing the chapter on the IXL test, which we've used the past few years for grades 4 through 6. So we've been researching and have come up with the Iowa assessment. Many of you are probably already familiar with it. The difference here is the student will be taking it as an above level assessment. So if the student is in 4th grade, they will be taking the Iowa assessment that is designed for 6th grade students. 5th graders will take for 7th grade, and 6th graders will take a test designed for 8th graders. So that is a little bit different than the IXL test. We're very excited to get it rolled out. Right now, if you go to our website, we still have a form for educators and families that are interested. So we've got that in there, but we will reach out to you if you fill out that form and try to get a test scheduled for your school. We're just taking it week by week to try to transition smoothly into the new system. And of course, our ACT test, you're all familiar with that in terms of pre-college, but those of you who haven't worked with TIP Kentucky, we use it as an above level assessment for 7th graders and 8th graders. It's a 2-step process, which is real important to communicate that to the families. We do have a toolkit on our website in this particular area that kind of helps teachers with suggested process. But first, you let the eligible students know that they are eligible within your school system or district. And then you invite them to come to our website to register. Once they do that, then we send them step 2, which is they have to get registered with the ACT. And there's a little extra step if your student is under 13, and we explain that in the process. It gets a little tricky and complicated to go through everything here, but it's very clear and smooth once they start into the system. And Tyler wanted me to mention about the science, unless you want to talk about it, Tyler, but we have an ACT has a new system. So when students go online, it looks like the science is separate, and it's still a part of the testing, but you have to include it. And that is a part of TIP Kentucky. Tyler, you want to add to that?
I just want to highlight that thinking about science and assessment data that we have in various grade levels and districts on science, it's pretty minimal in some places, if not all. If you have a lot of science data that supports talent development planning, please let me know what data you have so that we can learn more about that. But from our experience and what I've talked with different districts, I've seen that there's not much science assessment data to be able to serve those students. So it's important to us that science is still a part of TIP Kentucky. So even though science is optional with the ACT moving forward, we are still telling TIP Kentucky students that they should take the science part as part of TIP Kentucky. So for us, I guess you could say it's not optional, even though ACT allows it to be optional. This also goes along with a question that Leslie Van Wy from Marion County posted. What about Kentucky moving to the SAT instead of the ACT? Will there be any move to the SAT? We have not talked about internally moving to the SAT. So Julia, if you disagree with what I say, pop in and correct me. But as of right now, we are not talking about moving TIP Kentucky to the SAT. Again, we like the science score that ACT gives us, but there's also some barriers with SAT with younger students taking the SAT. From what I've heard with others working with SAT, under 13, there's not been a way for them to get access to taking SAT above level. ACT is working with us. It's a clunkier system than I would like, but we do have the ability for students under the age of 13 to take the ACT. So in my opinion, right now, we are going to stick with the ACT because it is more accessible to the students that we're looking for, and it also is providing that science data that is important to me for us to have in different districts.
Thank you, Tyler. You put this on here for me. I just want to emphasize that we have numerous dates coming up for the ACT. One of the registration dates for the September 6th date has already passed, but we have an October 18th date and a December 13th date. The registration dates, however, though, for regular registration where you don't have additional late fee charges are September 12th and November 7th. So those are things to keep in mind if you're looking to inform your students. And I would just like to emphasize that you are welcome to go to our educator toolkit just to kind of get it's very simple for those who are on this Zoom call seminar, and I would love to have you pop in and just share your story if we had time. But I think people have found that it's a pretty easy process for the educators. It's just a matter of finding who's eligible and informing them this is an opportunity for them. It's really up to the families to take that step to get their child registered. So if you have any questions, feel free to call me or email me. I'm happy to talk in more detail about what others have done and even refer you to some other educators who might be willing to talk about their processes. Going back to Tyler's comments, kids that do the Iowa assessment have to be in grades 4 through 6. ACT is only for students through our talent search program that are in grades 7 and 8.
And Jennifer, you mentioned this. I just want to highlight for the Iowa assessment, we are giving the assessment 2 grade levels above their current grade level. If you did the IXL, you know that we did the 8th grade. It was designed for 8th graders. So it was not that that same above levelness. That's not a word, but 4th graders were taking 8th grade for the IXL. But in this case, with the Iowa assessments, we're doing it so that 4th graders are taking the 6th grade assessment, 5th graders are taking the 7th, and 6th graders are taking the 8th. So everybody will be taking a above level assessment 2 grade levels above where they are for this Iowa assessment change.
Thanks for reiterating that point. And of course, this is suggested, but we are looking at a broader student body than just the formally identified gifted and talented in the state of Kentucky. So that's something that I would recommend to teachers, if at all possible, if you look at students who are scoring in the top 10% on a standardized grade level assessment. Tyler, you want to give a little insight on why we go broader?
Well, like Jennifer said, TIP Kentucky is about identifying and serving talent, regardless of whether they are formally identified as gifted. If we have students that are performing at advanced levels, we want to find out just how high of a level they are ready to perform and match those services with the students. So we don't have a strict cutoff. We don't have the ninth stay nine for a gifted identification. We say a very loose top 10% on one subject area. It doesn't have to be everything, just one of them. And that's meant to cast a wider net and just see which students are ready for higher level thinking. I was going to say something else and it went through my mind, so I'll think of it or not.
And of course, the score it can be in one area or more than one area. It doesn't have to be in all of the subject matters to take the test. And the test is not individualized by subject specific. A student may be performing highly in math and they'll take the entire assessment. And of course, there are exceptions to any rule. We don't want to be the stronghold gatekeeper. If there isn't, educators and families know their students better than we do. So if you feel there's a reason that a student needs to take this above level assessment, by all means, please allow them to take it. The score interpretations, as Tyler mentioned, are going to be a little bit different. We're paralleling and we're emulating what the interpretations have been in the past. But if you see some things that you have questions about when families get the scores or the educators get the scores, please let us know how we can help make it more clear for you, because we're massaging on our end what the final outcome will look like. As far as on the recommendations and resources, there will be a lot of information similar to past score interpretations for the families to use, as well as the educators, based on each subject specific area. And we are doing the pyramid of educational options like we did previously. However, it's going to be tailored a little bit differently, but you'll still be able to see where the student is. It'll link to the scores and specific services that would be recommended based on their level of talent that is found on the scores.
And with that last point, and kind of reiterating what we've said a few times about specific subject areas, that pyramid of educational options and those recommendations, they are linked to the specific subject areas. It's not linked overall that says that if a student is performing at a higher level in one of the subjects, then you need to accelerate them in everything or put them in honors courses for everything or whatever. It looks specifically at those individual levels, individual subjects, and gives you recommendations that matches the student's performance in those areas. I think a lot of times we think there's a gifted student, and again, Jennifer said, we're not looking only at gifted students, but if we're talking about gifted, a lot of times we may say, well, we're just going to put them in all honors classes because they're gifted. That's not necessarily the case if they're specifically gifted in math. but not the other subject areas, then we want to make sure those services in math meet their giftedness. But the other subjects may be just a regular course. So we want to be very mindful of that, and the pyramid of educational opportunities and the recommendations from these interpretation reports, they are very based on the subject areas, not a blanket statement about the student.
It's just a reminder of the test dates once again. I didn't even put the September one up simply because that even the late test date is gone, or registration date is gone, but these are upcoming dates that you might want to look at when you're thinking about inviting eligible students for the ACT.
And Jennifer, if you can stay on this slide, Michelle has asked in the chat, when is the deadline to apply for the 7th and 8th graders? So we don't really have a deadline per se, but if you are wanting to register for the ACT and not pay a late fee, you need to do that as soon as possible, because we try to turn around our voucher codes and get those out the door as soon as possible. If the student is under the age of 13, there's a separate form they have to fill out that goes through the College Board, and Jennifer, that takes a week to process sometimes.
Yeah.
And then if the student qualifies for free and reduced lunch, then we verify that with the educator as well. And that usually takes a couple of business days to get a response, but it could take a little longer depending on if somebody's out of the office or something. So we allow folks to sign up throughout the year for the ACT, but just be mindful if you're looking at a certain date to take it, to register through Tip Kentucky as soon as possible, so that we're able to get through all of that process and make sure that you get the voucher code and directions that the student needs to be able to register for the assessment.
And Tyler, you may have mentioned this, but the voucher code is for the entire year. So if you invite students who are eligible right now, they register with us, they don't have to take it October 18th, the test. They have up until next summer, and that voucher code is good for the entire testing cycle, which goes through summer of 2026. So the sooner that we can inform them of this opportunity, the more testing date opportunities they have. And as you know, a lot of kids, they find in February, oh, wow, I can't do that date because I have such and such academic competition or whatever. So then they're just stuck with maybe a couple of dates left that they can take it, and they've already paid for the voucher code.
And the one other thing with deadlines that I think we should mention, it's on another slide later on, Jennifer, but to be eligible for coming to the recognition ceremony, you have to take the assessment by the February date, because we need time to get that back from the ACT organization, those scores back, and to analyze and send out invitations. So we have set the cutoff for eligibility for the recognition ceremony as the February date this year.
I also might mention the test. ACT started a new system, so they have both online testing as well as paper and pencil. So we have discovered that the test scores for certain areas, and I don't know what their algorithms are, but for certain areas of the state, it's taking a lot longer to get the scores in. So that's why we really have to, unfortunately, there's not a March test date, or we'd probably make that the cutoff, but February's the last before we can get all the scores in and have an organization to it all. I just threw these little nuggets in because I just like for us to keep this in mind, that, and granted, this is just formal identification, but looking back at the most recent statistic, which is 23-24, they probably haven't had a chance at KDE to get the next year up on the website, but we have 62,957 students that are identified for gifted and talented in grades 4 through 12. And since we began, while I'm very proud of these numbers, they fall very short of students that have the potential to be tested to see what their academic potential is. Now, there's a lot of caveats to those numbers, but it's just to give you some perspective. 63,000 students approximately are identified, and that's just those who are identified. So if you look at high potential and people who haven't been identified, there's quite a large number. So I would love for us to see this number grow in terms of students that are exploring and trying to really find what their academic potential is. And as Tyler mentioned, we do need the test scores from February of this year. It'll be 2026 February test date will be the last for the upcoming recognition ceremony, which is in May. But that doesn't mean that they won't be invited. So anybody who tested after February and is eligible, we'll invite them to this coming this spring's program. And of course, all of you know this, but this I just left on there for any new people to GT that visit our website if you want to stay informed and get involved. And I highly recommend, if you aren't, to subscribe to our monthly updates. We have a lot of information with programs and everything that's been mentioned here. It's a friendly little reminder of deadlines or programs and workshops that are coming up. Of course, you are welcome at any time to talk with myself or Tyler about TIP Kentucky or anybody else about all of our programming. And we encourage you to stay involved with KAGE. So thanks for being here today.
And I'll say, if you have any questions, you can put those in the Q&A box or in the chat, or you can email either one of us. But I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Roberts so we can move on to why we do the work that we do, students.
Absolutely. We have 3 students who, if you'll turn on your cameras, the best part of what we do is for young people. And for our panel today, we have 3 panelists wearing green for the Gatton Academy. They're here, and I've told them very briefly in an email that I'll be asking the questions that they can answer or not answer, but we just want to hear from young people about the topic we're talking about today, which is, why do young people need advanced content? So if each of you would introduce yourself, all our students at the Gatton Academy, if you'd give your name, your hometown, school district, and year at Gatton. And I'm going to start out with Arish.
Hi, my name is Arish Ali, and I'm from Laurel County.
And are you a senior?
I am a senior.
I think all 3 of you are seniors. Is that right? Good. Roby?
Yeah, my name is Roby Hardesty. I'm from Edgewood in Kenton County, so I'm in the Kenton County School District, way up north. I'm also a senior in the Gatton Academy.
Great. You're up, Corinne. And if you all would just leave your voices on, I think that we'll go pretty quickly. Yes.
Great. My name is Corinne Green. I'm from Bowling Green and Warren County, and I went to sophomore in high school, and now I'm a senior at Gatton Academy.
So let me remind everyone who's listening that all of you remain duly enrolled with your sending school. So your sending school continues to get the daily attendance funds. They get your test scores. So in many ways, that sending school does not lose two things that are really important to them. And the third thing they can do is celebrate your achievements because you were in that school for a long time. So I'm going to ask you an array of questions, and I'm going to start out back with your elementary school. What happened in elementary school for you that let you learn more advanced content than maybe others were learning at the same time? If there are examples, what are they? And I'm not going to call on you to speak out.
I can take this first. So at my elementary school, we had something called 212. This was actually a Warren County-wide, Warren County experience. It was a program called 212, which allowed gifted students to be able to take the bus once a week on whatever day they were assigned to go spend the day at a different school. And essentially, multiple schools would come together. So we were able to meet other students from other schools in Warren County that, it might be hard to meet other elementary school students from different schools, but that was something I really enjoyed about it. And we also, we participated in STEM activities. So they would teach like a main math class, which would be an advanced math class, higher than 5th and 6th grade level math, and then, or related to something like statistics or something that they don't usually teach in elementary school math. And then we would have an elective class. So we would be able to take things like criminology, computer science, CAD, like computer coding and stuff like that. So it was an incredible experience. And that really showed me as an elementary schooler what I was capable of, that I was capable of doing more than just what I was given in elementary school, and that I could be challenged. And that honestly kind of sparked my love for math and science.
Corinne, I'm going to add something to this just for general information. 212 started as a part of a Javits grant we had, and Warren County picked it up and kept it, so it was institutionalized, and I'm so glad it was a challenging opportunity for you. Other opportunities from our panelists?
So, although I wasn't in Kentucky for elementary school, in my elementary district in New Mexico, we had a essay contest, kind of statewide. I think it was citywide in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so what they would do is they would pick 2 students from each elementary school who wrote an essay for about a senior they knew. And then they would present that essay in kind of in a conference type situation. And while I was writing that essay, I got so much support from my teachers, especially my English teachers. And they really put a lot of work into how I was writing that essay to make sure I really excelled and got that spot to present that essay in that conference. So just having support from teachers wanting you to succeed was really helpful.
I love that. Roby, do you have an example?
Yeah, so I had a pretty unique experience pre-high school because I was actually homeschooled until effectively my sophomore year of high school. So I don't have any particular examples from experiences in my school district that I can point to in elementary school, unfortunately. But, I did do a lot of things related, extracurriculars like music and stuff like that. And I think a really important thing for gifted students and students in general is just being able to have the opportunity to explore a variety of stuff. Like Corinne was talking about in the 212 Academy, you had your core classes, but you also had electives that you could maybe pick from and just explore something maybe you haven't heard of before. So I think stuff like that, just generally is really important for students to, be able to engage with something new.
So, Roby, did you have interest in particular that you would share that you had the opportunity to engage in?
Yeah, I would say my biggest thing that I engage with just extracurricularly and before I actually enrolled in public school was music. I did a lot of music. I went through the strings, like the Northern Kentucky University string project. I did that for actually until I moved in for Gatton in my junior year, and I worked my way up through there. And it's just stuff like that. I had always been interested in STEM, but to be able to explore the creative arts and music and the humanities and stuff like that was really impactful for me, just in a development sense.
One of the things that we've had discussed during our session this morning were opportunities to take advanced math before everyone was doing it. Did you all have the opportunity to do algebra in 7th or 8th grade?
Yes, at my school, we were able to take it. We were able to take a test that allowed us to place into higher level math. And for students who did that, that kind of determined the course of mathematics that you take throughout high school. So that's the only reason why I've been able to test as far as I have into math, because I started out in algebra in 7th grade. It was very beneficial for me.
Okay. How about the rest of you?
Based our math level on our iReady math scores. So based on that, we got put into a higher level math. So I took algebra in 8th grade and then moved course. I took geometry in 9th and stuff like that.
Okay. So was that true for you, Robbie?
Yeah, so again, because I didn't have the traditional kind of schooling process, I can't really speak fully on that. I do know my brother, he entered school in 7th grade and then did online school in 8th grade, and he did have the opportunity to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, so he's starting his freshman year of high school this year, actually, so he's starting in geometry. So I do know there are opportunities like that, you know, in the Kenton County School District to be able to take those classes early. You know, prior to 9th grade. And I think that is an important step to be able to take. I mean, for gifted students, you know, of course, being able to take those advanced classes earlier than a lot of your peers is a good step up, I think.
I'm going to kind of skip up to Gatton now and talk about opportunities that you have. And just for those who are on this webinar today, Gatton students to apply must have completed Algebra 2 and Geometry, which is easy to have done in some schools, but not as easy to have accomplished in other schools. Okay, so you are seniors in high school. What math class are you taking currently? And this is university math class, not a high school class. Anyone?
Well, I'm taking Calc 2 this year.
Okay. Calc 2, and that is a requirement at Gatton to have completed Calc 2 before you graduate.
I am in multivariable calculus right now.
So, Corinne, tell those of us who are not mathematicians what classes you've taken prior to taking multivariate calculus.
My first semester at Gatton, I took Calc 1. Which I know a lot of students either start in trig or start after Calc 1, depending on if they took it in high school. So there wasn't a lot of us in that class, but second semester I took Calc 2, and the next step is technically Calc 3, is multivariable calculus. And I chose to take that because I am planning to be an engineering major, so that by the time I graduate, I will have completed, hopefully, my engineering math requirements, which are Calc 1, Calc 2, multivariable calculus, and differential equations. So that's my next step next semester, is to take differential equations.
Yeah. I am also, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, I'm also taking Calculus 2 next semester. And I did just want to comment on what you mentioned, where students had to take Geometry and Algebra 2 before they come into Gatton. Since I had to take Algebra 1 in 9th grade because I didn't have the kind of regular schooling experience, I didn't have that opportunity to take it earlier, I had to double up on Algebra 2 and Geometry in my sophomore year. And I know that's kind of a thing that can be a struggle in some schools. Like my brother is going to Ignite Institute, and he was thinking about doing that, but I believe he wasn't able to just because of how the schedule worked. And I mean, I think another pretty important thing could be kind of having flexibility with, you know, that scheduling and stuff like that to be able to prepare students for opportunities like Gatton or just like, you know, other kind of college prep academies and stuff like that, you know. So I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that was
thank you.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's important. One of the things Gatton students may do is engage in undergraduate research. Have any of you had research opportunities while you're here? And if so, what?
I did research with Dr. Srivastava at WKU. I participated in biology research in his lab, working with Drosophila melanogaster, which is essentially just a fruit fly. But I learned a lot about the capabilities of fruit flies, like how versatile they are. We can use them for essentially anything related to humans. They have a lot more in common with humans than you would think. And I was able to participate in research over the summer, and it was an incredible opportunity. And I'm so thankful that I was able to do that.
Thanks.
Yeah. I can talk about this a little bit. I mean, of course, undergraduate research is one of the biggest benefits that Gatton can provide to its students, just because of how much they kind of push it and how easy, I guess, simple it is compared to other high schools. It is to be able to connect with professors and people working on research and research labs like that. I personally went through kind of a research-based course called the Genome Discovery Exploration Program. It's a 2-semester kind of sequence where we worked with bacterial viruses called bacteriophages. I could talk about this for hours. I'm very, very, very passionate about this, but I'll try to keep it short. And that really served as an introduction to just kind of how research works, the critical thinking skills, and also just the practical skills that you need to learn to be able to actually produce results that are publishable or that are useful to the scientific world. This semester, I'm continuing my research with Dr. King at WKU, who was the professor for that genome sequence, and I'm going to continue working on the same type of thing. I'm going to keep working with bacterial viruses and stuff like that. But yeah, that's my experience with research here.
I love it.
Research was mostly on PTSD and how we use different tests to see how different participants react with their PTSD. So we had them attached to an electrode cap, and so we had their brain EEG pulled up, and we would see their different brain waves and see how they would react to different tests and how their PTSD handled those different tests. So this was really cool seeing that, and I also learned so much on how to interact with different participants and get results. And I also ended up presenting that research at the WKU showcase last semester.
One of the people who shared information with us today was Brian Mefford, who was talking about how important thinking at higher levels is. And that's one of the benefits that you get from engaging in research, because if there were right answers to everything, you wouldn't be doing research to figure out what was the connection. I want to highlight for everyone who's listening that all Gatton students take math each semester they're here at the Gatton Academy, and they ending at least with Calc 2, as we said. You also take a class in biology, chemistry, physics, computer science, and a sequential class in one of those areas, plus an introduction to engineering class. So you fulfill all of your high school requirements that you have not fulfilled with a university class. So when you graduate, you will have a minimum of 60 college hours. I bet some of you are going to have more than that. Is that correct with any of you? And if so, how many college hours will you have?
Yeah, that's, for me at least, that's definitely correct. I know that's correct for a lot of people. I've had to personally fill out my semesters pretty heavily in terms of credit hours. So I'm going to be graduating, I don't remember the exact number, but it's low to mid 70s, I believe, in terms of credit hours. So it's definitely a very big, benefit, especially as someone who is low income. And, this is a big, important opportunity for me and my family.
Terrific. Is that true with the other two of you?
The same. I think I'll graduating around the same as what Roby mentioned, low to mid 70s. Because as we talked about research, you can have those those research hours as credit hours. So that also really helps. And all those classes maybe transferring to whatever college you're going to apply to really helps in terms of scholarships and saving money.
Absolutely. I also believe I'll be graduating around that same level of credit hours, and it's a great opportunity, and it could allow me to graduate in 2 years, depending on where I go to school, or like double major, and there's just so many more opportunities that I have by doing that. And even if I don't finish in 2, I still have taken the classes that I will need to graduate, so I'll have a predisposition to a lot of things that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Well, let me ask you, do you have any chance to have fun at the Gatton Academy?
Absolutely. We every weekend we have weekend activities that are hosted by students. Like, we have a students activity board that helps to plan things for students. Yesterday, we did something called A-Late and Paint, which was so much fun. Everybody comes together in one space and does things together, like soccer and painting and board games, stuff like that. There's so many opportunities, especially on the weekends, to have fun.
Yeah, definitely. And even beyond like organized activities and stuff like that. I mean, just yesterday, actually, we had a big group of people. Me and Corinne were there, go downtown, go grab ice cream, just hang out downtown in downtown Bowling Green. So like there's definitely plenty of opportunities for students to have fun while also balancing, that kind of academic side of things with also the social and community side of things. So definitely.
I also agree. I would say that not only do you get organized activities, or you can go down to the square, the students themselves just come together. We could play a board game, just talk. I mean, just conversing with your peers is really fun too. So just having
And
that time.
Gatton actually, oh, I'm so sorry.
You can continue.
I was just going to say that Gatton actually really encourages that. They encourage students to not kind of hold themselves up and only do work. They that is one of our character, we have a five word, what's the word, grow or something like that. And it's basically just telling us that we need to go out and do things, community involvement, having fun, being able to engage with others, talk to professors, stuff like that. So they really encourage socialness here, and reaching out to people for help, reaching out to people to have fun, involving yourself in the experience.
Well, since I've been involved with the idea of an academy since it was an idea, I used to hear, don't know that I have recently, but what about the senior prom? What's the response to them? What should I say?
Senior prom for me was an incredible experience, and I would say that it was so much better than any other prom I've been to because it was so close. I just felt so close to everybody there, and everybody knows each other, so there's no holding back, there's no awkwardly standing. Everybody is so engaged with each other and just having fun.
So we have a prom.
Oh, yes, we do have a prom.
Absolutely. Well, if I were asking you, why would you want to come together to a residential school for 2 years of high school, what's your top answer?
This group of people. I mean, coming from a small town in London, Kentucky, you don't meet a lot of people that, for example, yes, there are some gifted, talented students, and there are some people wanting more, but having this tight group of people that all kind of want the same thing as you, all kind of want to increase their knowledge in certain areas like science, math, engineering, stuff like that, and having a diverse group of people. I know so many people from different counties and with different interests, and just having that diversity is really nice.
How do you answer that, Robbie?
I mean, I would definitely agree with Arij. And it's a very unique experience to have a residential school where, you have like 180 to 200 students of roughly the same age all living together. That's a very unique experience that you really don't get. And even when you move on to college, it's not really the same type of experience, I would say, because it's, usually colleges are larger. It's a very, very tight-knit group here at Gatton Academy in specific. And just, I think the biggest benefit, I mean, at least for me, just beyond the academic, stuff like that, which would imagine kind of goes without saying, has been the community, because it's been so tight knit, and you have everybody, kind of wanting, like Arij was saying, wanting the same thing. They want to grow, they want to learn. It's not just, let's get in here and, get our degree and, go out and do whatever. It's, an active participation in learning and in the community. And it's definitely a very unique experience. And I think the community is probably the biggest reason why I've had such a good time here at the Gatton Academy.
How about you, Corinne? What would you say?
I think for me, it's the challenge. I come from a school where I would have, still a good community and good friends, but I wouldn't have the challenge. That is something I didn't have at my old school, but that is something that I have here. I've learned how to struggle. I've learned how to challenge myself, and I've learned how to study. And I think that it's really important for gifted students to learn how to struggle before they go to college. College is not the place where you want to just now learn. I mean, it's okay, but I think it's good for us to learn how to be challenged and how to work past difficulties while we're in high school, because a lot of other students have to deal with that. But a lot of the time at our sending schools, we don't have to. So one thing I'm just so grateful for is that I've learned how to work through things that are difficult for me, and I've learned how to talk to people much better than I did before. I've learned to communicate better, advocate for myself, and that's something that I'm grateful to have this experience from.
And I'm grateful for each of you for being a panelist today and sharing. Now, I want those who are participating today to know that the application is up for the Gatton Academy's next class, and it will stay up until February the 1st. So if you know of students who are Kentucky residents who need an opportunity to learn at a little bit higher level than may be available where they are, encourage them to look at the website, to submit an application if it's what seems to be a good thing for them. So thanks to each of you for being on the panel, and I hope you have a good Saturday and Sunday and are ready for week 2 of classes. So Lynette, if you'd come back on with me, let's talk about the last almost 3 hours. What's your biggest takeaway from today?
One thing that I have been impressed listening today is how much synergy there is around providing advanced academic opportunities for students in Kentucky. There are many different organizations all working together who acknowledge that we aren't where we need to be, and that it's really important that we work together on increasing opportunities for students like Arij and Roby and Corinne and all the other students that are in their local communities looking for opportunities to grow. And so I think it's been really exciting to hear from different organizations and different perspectives how we're all coming together to work towards a similar goal.
And Lynette, it strikes me that we probably have opportunities we've never latched onto before for districts to work together to offer some opportunities that perhaps doing so alone doesn't seem to be realistic at this moment. Do you see it that way?
Oh, certainly. Gatton is a collaboration with every school district in the state. We share students in serving them. And our collaboration might not look like what every other collaboration might look like. But as Corinne was talking about at Gatton, one of our goals is helping our students learn to collaborate and make an impact on their communities. And we do that in different ways by partnering with different people. And I think school districts can find opportunities to partner with universities, with each other. And there are a number of districts that have started doing that, and we can learn from those examples.
We certainly need to be talking to each other. We need to be sharing opportunities. House Bill 190 offers so much opportunity for us And whether we really latch onto that opportunity and make the most of us is what will be determined in the next few months. And as we look toward the legislative session, I would want to highlight for listeners how important advocacy is, making sure that those who represent you in Frankfurt know that you're interested in advanced coursework, that you're interested in seeing that your districts have every opportunity to soar in the preparation of students for the most high-level jobs that they could possibly be fulfilling. It's an exciting time, but it's a time that has no guarantees with it unless we take this opportunity and do in our school district, whatever that is, to see that 4th through 12th graders have opportunities to learn every day in school. So Lynette, representing KAGE, what's a final word you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, as we're thinking about creative solutions and collaboration, KAGE is a great place to do that. We're a place where we want to share ideas and we want to work together with partners across the state, or gifted coordinators in different places, or teachers or principals or administrators. Having multiple perspectives is really powerful. And KAGE is a very passionate and idea-filled group. We are a very creative bunch. And I think we could take from Brian's perspective from industry and tech, seeing this as an opportunity to really try some new things and figuring out what works. And KAGE wants to be a part of that, and we want to bring people together to have those conversations. So I hope that folks who are watching will join us for Chat and Choose to have those conversations with people from different perspectives, and come to our events and join with Advanced Kentucky and the Pritchard Committee in advocating for our high ability learners.
And let me say, numbers count in advocacy. It would be very important for you to make sure you're a member of KAGE and that you encourage others who you know who have similar interest to do so. I do believe the future of Kentucky has a great deal to do with the educational opportunities that we are and will be providing to young people.
That is so true.
Well, I think I'm ready to sign off. Do you have any final words?
I do not, other than thank you so much for making the time to join us today and to engage in this conversation and in furthering opportunities for students.
Absolutely. Let's advocate, let's learn, let's make Kentucky so good for students who are ready to learn at advanced levels. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.